She never admitted to cheating. Mr. Chaz Watkins? Oh, shit, I thought. But I didn't flinch or miss a beat in my conversation with Kevin the bartender. I'd only moved back to Texas 6 months ago after a 3-year exile. How had she found me? And more importantly, why? I didn't turn around and didn't pay attention to him in any way. I was just about to utter the punchline to a particularly vulgar joke when I felt a hand on my shoulder. "Mr. Watkins, my name is Rob Morgan. I was hired to find you." I raised an eyebrow at Kevin and turned my head slightly. "Do you want to keep that hand, Robbie?" I felt his hand leave my shoulder, and turning to Kevin, I spoke my line. He laughed heartily, poured me another Shiner Bock and told me it was on the house, and headed to the other end of the bar, still chuckling. "Mr. Watkins, we've got a case for you," I interrupted him. "My name is not Watkins, and I have no business with you unless you want to hire me to brew something. If not, we have nothing to discuss." "Mr. Watt," was all he had time to say before he fell to the floor. I put the $20 on the counter, massaged my right hand, waved to Kevin, and got up to leave. "Mr. Watkins, you're a hard man to find, and I have no intention of starting the search all over again." I looked down at the stun gun he aimed at me, and even though he was stretched out on the floor at the time, it was pretty intimidating. When he stood up, he wiped a trickle of blood from the corner of his mouth. I have no doubts about the use of this device. So have a seat and let's have a chat. I glanced at Kevin, who was heading our way, and waved at him. He paused, nodded, and then said, "Let me know if you need anything, Bill." "Thanks, Kevin, I will." I turned around and looked at the asshole with the taser. "Who the fuck carries a stun gun in Texas?" I grinned and leaned a little closer to him. "Do I know you, boy?" "No, Mr. Watkins." "Your manners need work, son. You couldn't have been raised in Texas. Why don't you call me Bill and then tell me who you are, what you want?" "Bill? Yes? All right. Bill. Kevin, set us up with a couple beers and put it on Robbie's tab." I smiled, sat down in the nearest booth, and asked, "So why don't you tell me who this Watkins guy is and why he's giving you such a big stick up your ass?" "All right, Bill. We'll play it your way, at least for the moment. Mr. Chaz Watkins was a successful, wealthy Dallas businessman who disappeared without a trace a little over 3 years ago. He is married to Mrs. Amy Watkins, and they have a daughter, Sarah, who is 23 years old. My name, as I said, is Rob Morgan. I was hired to find Chaz Watkins and bring him back to Dallas." "You were? 3 years, you say, and no trace? What does that have to do with me? You seem to have mistaken me for him, but I'm not Chaz Watkins, and I'm not a successful businessman. My name is Bill Grant. I brew shit for money, play guitar a little, badly, and do a little traveling. I've been so careful. Before I left, I paid a lot of money for a whole new identity. Since then, I've grown my hair and beard, dropped about 30 pounds of fat, and added about 20 pounds of muscle. Amy wouldn't recognize me even if I spit on her. I'll have to remember to put that to the test if I ever see her again. When I left Dallas, I drove north and west for 3 days, stopped, found a trailer to rent, signed up for a welding class at the local community college, and started my life over. I left everything but the money in Dallas. A high-paying job, 2 houses, cars, credit cards, keys, cell phone, clothes, and a lying, cheating wife. I paid cash for a used Ford F-150, registered it under my new name, and drove it to a music store where I bought a used but beautiful Martin Dreadnought guitar. I didn't bring anything with me except the clothes on me. I rarely stayed in one place longer than 6 to 8 months and always paid cash. I had no credit cards or cell phone. I worked for cash under the table, didn't file a tax return, and almost always avoided trouble. It must have been Sarah. I couldn't cross her off completely. About 15 or 16 months after I left, I sent her a letter to let her know I was alive. I sent her another one before each move, from the computer at the public library, just to let her know I loved her and was thinking of her. I never told her where I was or why I left. or answered her questions about either. Well, Bill, Robbie grinned. Like I said, a little over 3 years ago, Mr. Watkins just took off and disappeared, and no one seemed to know anything about it. For the first year or so, the police followed it up, in my opinion, rather carelessly, and many people suspected that he had either eloped with another woman or that he was the subject of foul play on the part of Mrs. Watkins. It was a difficult year for Mrs. Watkins, personally, professionally, financially. She tried to liquidate some of their assets, but she didn't have power of attorney, and she couldn't get Mr. Watkins declared deceased, so she was stuck. There was money in the bank, but there wasn't much new money coming in, so she spent it pretty quickly. She hired a lawyer to help her get her husband declared dead. Unfortunately for Mrs. Watkins, about 16 months after her husband disappeared, their daughter Sarah received an email from a man claiming to be Mr. Watkins. The daughter was overjoyed, of course, but recognizing Mr. Watkins as dead became a tricky business. At that point, the police closed the case, and Mrs. Watkins hired my firm to find Mr. Chaz Watkins and bring him to Dallas to face fraud charges so that Mrs. Watkins could gain sole access and control of the family estate. Poor dear, I grinned. She sounds like she's in a tight spot. So tell me, Robbie, how do I fit into this little made-for-TV movie? Well, Mr. Watkins, may I call you Chaz? You can call me Bill like everybody else. I am authorized by the state of Texas to forcibly, if necessary, escort you, Chaz Watkins, to the sheriff of Dallas County to answer charges of fraud and child abandonment. I laughed out loud, much to his annoyance. That's too loud for the little guy, Robbie. Your story is cute, but what fraud was committed? When did refusing a shitty marriage become a felony in Texas, and why does the Dallas County Sheriff care? That dog don't hunt easy, Robbie. I'd say if you ever find this Chaz Watkins, you're gonna have to try harder to scare him. I don't think he's stupid. I think convincing him that he should go back to Dallas is very difficult, and I suspect that if he just left, he had a good reason. Let me help you with a little role-playing, Robbie. Why does he have to come back? What's in it for him? I think you'd have to dig pretty deep to find the answer to those questions. I emptied my bottle of beer and took a sip. You can put away your little laser pointer now, Robbie. Under the table, I twitched the bolt of my Glock. He really should have paid more attention to people. He lost his color a little, knowing there was a round in the chamber of the 9mm pistol pointed at him, and carefully brought the stun gun to the spot on the table I was pointing at. I'd like to tell you a story, Robbie. This story was told to me by a friend of mine, I'd say about 3 years ago. Are you listening? All right. How about another couple beers and a basket of wings, Kevin? My friend Robbie here is paying for it. There was this guy I met about 3 years ago. Let's call him Chaz. He was married to a woman. Let's call her Amy. And coincidentally, they had a daughter named Sarah. This is the kind of story my friend Chaz told me. I can tell you when my marriage ended, or at least the moment I realized it was doomed. It was Amy's 50th birthday. We decided to celebrate her 50th at our country home for a weekend, just the two of us. She had always been a quiet woman who wasn't interested in parties or elaborate events. We are fairly well off, and so she had everything she needed and wanted. This made gift-giving difficult. But I spent months thinking about what to get her, felt her out subtly in conversations, interviewed her friends, and was happy with the gifts I chose for her. She obviously wasn't. That was clear as soon as she saw them. Her face lowered for just a moment before a mask of forced gratitude appeared as she thanked me. We had been married for 24 years by then, and I thought I knew her well, but it was obvious to me that she had expected something very different. I pondered that thought for a while and then asked her how she really felt. She assured me that she was happy, but her smile was forced. I insisted, and she finally admitted that the gifts weren't what she expected, and she was hoping for something more. Well, she wasn't sure what. Just not this. If she didn't know, how the hell was I supposed to know? I apologized for ruining such an important event for her and told her I would do my best to make it up to her. She told me I could make it up to her if I wanted to, but she was very surprised that her 50th birthday wasn't marked by more consideration on my part. Yes! I tried to explain to her the reason for each of the gifts, but the more I talked, the more annoyed she became. Eventually, I promised to make it up to her, to which she replied, "If you had thought of me first, you wouldn't have had to try to make it up to me, and how can you make it up to me for such a slip-up? I'll never turn 50 again." Then she told me she wasn't feeling well and wanted to go home to Dallas. We drove home in silence, both of us seething with anger. We had almost never been married. We had a long-distance relationship while I was in college. She's 3 years older than me and had already graduated. And when I went to visit her for a long weekend, I caught Amy cheating on me. We were walking around downtown when we were stopped by a tall, older man, about 50 years old, who hugged her affectionately. Amy introduced the two of us, and when he shook my hand, he smirked. He smirked! He had a weak handshake, and my father taught me to always be wary of people who have a weak handshake. My guard was up, and I immediately disliked him. "Nice to meet you, Dan. Are you a friend of Amy's dad?" I couldn't figure out what it was, but something was off here. Amy was a little flustered, and he was acting a little smug. While she was at work that day, I did a little digging and found out that they had been dating for about a month. I found their love letters, for crying out loud. She wasn't even hiding it. We had agreed to be exclusive. When I asked her about it, of course she denied everything. They were only friends. Telling her to fuck off, I left immediately. I didn't call or write her. I didn't return her calls. I threw her letters in the trash can without reading them. Her friends started calling, and I ignored them. Then she had my friends call me and beg for reconciliation. I asked them all to tell her not to worry, that she was now free to make love and marry her grandfather. I fucking hate being lied to. Eventually, she came to me, and eventually was able to convince me to give her a second chance. I did, but kept her on a short leash for a very long time, and explicitly told her that if she cheated on me one more time, it was over between us. 2 years later, we were married. She never admitted to the affair. After 11 years of marriage, Amy threatened to divorce me. I was drinking too much, working too much, traveling too much, and she didn't want to share her life with me anymore. We had a fight. I told her that while I couldn't limit my traveling, I could cut back a bit on work and certainly limit my drinking. I begged her to think about our young daughter, Sarah. Eventually, she agreed, but I was burdened with some pretty severe restrictions, and she began to separate our finances and lives. She told me she was just preparing for the inevitable. I remarked to her that she didn't really seem to want it, and she just shrugged and left the room. I was determined, however, and over the next few years she relaxed. Mostly, I think, because I started earning several times more than she did. In fact, I was paying more in taxes than she made in a year, and having separate finances only benefited me by allowing me to pursue my own interests without having to discuss anything with her. I bought a couple of motorcycles, a large sailboat, took flying lessons, and bought a Cessna airplane. I wore designer suits and drove a late-model BMW. I bought our second home in the country, a secluded place on 50 acres, without any financial help from her. I always contributed first to the household, paid for all the family vacations, and still I lived a life she wanted a bigger slice of. So she relaxed. I'm not sure we ever really recovered from that episode. 2 years ago, I was close to divorcing her. Over the years, Amy became more aggressive toward me. She became stroppy, and I became her subordinate. We rarely made love, maybe twice a year, and when we did, it was more like we were both scratching an itch. There was no intimacy or lovemaking. I was sure she had been cheating on me for years, but I had no proof. I don't think she had long-term affairs, just lots of one-night flings while she traveled for work. She got better at cheating and hiding it. Our daughter had just left for college, and one night, after a rather nasty and public attack on my character and attractiveness, I'd had enough and gave her an ultimatum. Either we work on becoming a stronger, more loving couple with better communication and an active, fulfilling life, or we go our separate ways. I no longer wanted to live as people just tolerating each other's presence. I had to file for divorce against her before she agreed to talk. We argued for days, and it was the first time in years that we really communicated. She didn't want a divorce. This surprised me, and I told her so. She promised that she would return to our relationship and work on her part of the marriage. I was skeptical, feeling that she actually wanted my money, but I loved her and eventually gave in. So, we agreed on new rules for interaction and communication and set about fixing our marriage. I took the lead and pushed her, and while she seemed content to travel this road with me, I always felt like I was the chauffeur of Miss Daisy's car. She was in the back seat admiring the scenery, and I was doing all the hard work. After a year, I told her I wanted her to sit in the front seat with me and drive sometimes. She agreed, but persisted in sitting in the back seat. Of course, she had her own list of complaints, and I listened to them, acknowledged them, and began trying to address each one. I loved her, and although she rarely initiated anything to improve our marriage, she participated in anything I suggested, and things improved. We began to communicate better and make much more rewarding love, maybe twice a week, sometimes more. She was no longer as adventurous as she had been at the beginning of our marriage, but she was agreeing to try new things and seemed content. I relaxed. We were content, but I also knew she was holding back. It was a few weeks after her 50th birthday, and it seemed that things were getting cooler between us. The affection was waning, at least on her part, and the love was slowly drying up. When I asked Amy about it, she blamed it on stress at work and promised that when her schedule calmed down, things would return to normal. But that didn't happen. She always had to work long hours in the middle of projects, so at first I didn't see anything alarming about the late nights. But then it began to dawn on me that it seemed more excessive than usual, and that I started spending more weekends alone at our country house. She always had a plausible excuse, however, and I decided to just wait a little longer. Over the next 6 weeks, we only made love twice. Both times at my insistence, and both times she seemed to just tolerate it. Right after one lovemaking session in which she barely participated, she rolled over onto her back, and the other time just walked out of the room. In the evenings and on weekends, she did her best to avoid me. When it was impossible or difficult, she seemed bored at best, but more often just annoyed. I memorized this picture. The shrew was back. Part of our job for the previous 2 years had been to discuss any problems that arose before they escalated into a fight, and if we did fight, we tried to be better, more productive in our conflicts. Remaining as impersonal as possible, we persevered toward a solution, always trying to see the other side. We did not tolerate excuses, justifications, or non-participation. We always recognized the feelings of the aggrieved party and tried to address only those issues. No evasion, avoidance, or blaming. When I told her about her schedule, lack of affection, and our dead life, she didn't want to discuss it. Over the next few days, she postponed the conversation several times, and when I pointed out that she wasn't playing by our new rules for interaction and communication, she told me to shove those rules up my ass and leave her alone. I suppressed my anger, and between clenched teeth, reminded her that we had agreed that these rules were important and non-negotiable. She told me to back off and negotiate with myself from now on. Message received, loud and clear. Was she cheating on me? Probably. I didn't need to know that. Texas is a no-fault state, but I wanted to know. It was clear that our marriage was over, and if that was the case, her cheating made little difference, but I hate being lied to, and this time she would pay for it. I have often reminded her of what I think about fidelity and honesty. I realize you can't choose who you are attracted to, but you can choose what you do about it. I told her that if she is so attracted to someone else that she can't resist sleeping with them, we will divorce first. It would hurt me. But I would respect her for respecting me enough to wait until we were divorced, to be honest with me. We could part amicably, sort of, and I promised to do the same for her. I had to know for sure. and there was something I needed to do. Before we merged our finances, about 8 years prior, I had moved some of my money into an investment account. I had also made arrangements with my employer to have all my bonuses transferred into this new account. I never told my wife about this, mostly because she wanted to control our finances and I thought I could invest better than she could. Turns out I was right, and my investment portfolio has become very healthy. One of the benefits offered by my long-term employer was the preparation and filing of tax returns, and this was the one area where my wife and I never agreed. At her insistence, we started filing taxes separately 13 years ago, and she saw no real benefit in changing that, so we didn't. I suspected she was hiding money, so I figured it would allow me to hide this investment account from her. I planned to surprise her with the money in retirement if we lived to see it. In my mind, if she hadn't cheated and we were divorced, I would have happily divided all of our assets. But if she had, well, that was a different matter. I had to figure out how to protect that money. She would not be rewarded for her betrayal and dishonesty. I also had to figure out how to get control of our joint accounts, sell our house in Dallas — it was in my name only, but she loved it — and try to keep our country property. I loved the place. We planned to live there in retirement, and I didn't want to give it to her or sell it. Of course, if it looked like I couldn't keep it for myself, I would make her sell it before I let her have it. I paid for it, furnished it, and maintained it for 10 years. As far as I was concerned, she simply had no right to it. If I had to, I would have given her the house in Dallas. I only wanted to get rid of it because she loved it so much, but I would give up that pleasure if it meant I could keep my country home. It would take time, and I wasn't sure she wasn't going to just serve me anytime soon, so I got to work immediately. The first thing I needed to do was contact a lawyer. One of my old college buddies was a corporate lawyer here in Dallas. I called him and asked him to meet with me, and he readily agreed. We met at a Roadhouse cafe near his office that evening, and over dinner and a couple beers, I explained my situation and asked for a referral to a family law attorney and his personal and legal thoughts on my situation. His legal advice was sobering. Basically, I was totally screwed. If I divorced her, there was no way to protect my assets from her, at least no legal way. And while there was still a healthy network of well-meaning guys in Texas who disapproved of cheating wives, no fault meant I could get a 50-50 split with a little alimony for Amy. It didn't matter who did what. If she cheated on me, no harm, no foul. Give her half of everything you own and let her move her boyfriend into your house while you pay her alimony. He advised me from a legal standpoint, if it affects the status of my marriage, to do nothing. I just blinked at him. He smiled and said, "Don't divorce her, change the equation, find out if she is cheating, and if so, serve her boyfriend and strip her with what you can take with you. Have her file for divorce and try to get back everything you take with you." He referred me to a shark lawyer who specialized in family law. She was the only lawyer he feared if he and his wife were getting a divorce. That was Plan B. Yes, the gravy train was over for Amy. She continued to avoid me, and I let her. I no longer asked about her schedule, weekends, our life, or lack of intimacy, and she seemed to take that as a victory. It was as if I had simply accepted the new situation. I now spent most of my time at our country home and rarely saw her. This seemed to give her pleasure. My new divorce attorney met with me and helped me change the beneficiaries in my will, insurance policies, etc. She also suggested I hire a private investigator because, as she said, Texas may be without fault, but there's nothing like a little visual carnal evidence to push negotiations in the right direction. I agreed. She recommended a former police officer who ran an agency she had used for a while with great success and had her paralegal contact him to set up an appointment. He took me in that same day, I paid for a deluxe package, and our entire lives were equipped with sound and video. Within days, they learned the who, when, and how long, and worked on obtaining video evidence that my attorney thought could help me if it came down to a divorce. A week later, I sat and reviewed the video evidence. I was more devastated than I realized, and even Plan B had disappeared from my thoughts. Love didn't strike me as anything special. She didn't do anything to him that she hadn't done to me, but her companion took every opportunity to verbally put me down, and she participated enthusiastically, even offering to sleep in my bed next time, which they did. She didn't ask him to wear protection and tried to figure out how to treat me to cream. Since I, for a while, had shown no interest in making love to her, they discussed how to overcome that. He was the one who had suggested cutting me off in the first place, but now the thought of making love to her really turned him on. And Amy, too, for that matter. I didn't know this woman and wondered if I'd ever really known her. The feeling of emptiness. Knowing your spouse is cheating and seeing them cheat are completely different things. I had no strength left in me to fight. I sealed the videotape and gave it to my attorney for safekeeping, with instructions to give it to my daughter in the event of my death. I prepaid Sarah's college tuition until graduation from our joint savings account, and then liquidated my investment account. I lived on what I had from the investment account myself, and it would have been enough for me for years without being frugal. Now, our joint savings account was seriously drained. 2 weeks later, I took one last look around the house, sighed, and came to terms with my decision. I left my keys, cell phone, and wallet on the foyer table where I always left them. Taking off my wedding ring, I tossed it on the pillow that lay on my side of the bed. Let her think about it. Then I walked away. I didn't talk to anyone, didn't leave any letters. I walked out the front door without even bothering to close it, walked around the corner, got in my new pickup truck, and drove away. 2 weeks later, a 40-year-old married man and father of 3 was robbed and brutally beaten while leaving a motel. He was able to walk again, but only after a short time, and then with a pronounced limp. A month after the robbery, his wife received a FedEx package with a video of her husband making love to a woman who looked to be about 50 years old. From what I understand, they divorced a year later, and he was broke. After I left, I drove aimlessly for 3 days. I didn't have any plan. I finally stopped in a small town one day for lunch and decided to stay for a while. I found a small community college that offered welding classes and signed up. Why not? 12 months later, I managed to find a job as a welder at an auto body shop. I only had a year of training, so I couldn't get a real job as a welder, but I found a lot of people willing to hire a guy for cash since it was a lot cheaper than a certified welder, and most welders weren't interested in the small jobs I was taking. I enjoyed my work there for another 4 months before deciding it was time to move on. I spent the next 2 years traveling around the country, occasionally stopping in small towns to hook up with someone and weld something. For the first time in years, I was enjoying life. I hated my job in Dallas. The money was fantastic, but even though I was a natural and excelled at it, it was hard for me to get up every morning to spend another day doing it. I was doing it for my family. Amy expected it, and Sarah deserved it. Amy liked money, and that meant she could pose as a saint while working for a non-profit organization that gets paid money for helping other people. In reality, the organization she worked for was mostly the wives of wealthy businessmen who wanted something to do and to be seen doing it. All of their fundraising events were publicized in the local newspaper, the who's who, and the dresses the employees wore cost more than most of their clients made in a year of hard work. It was pathetic, and most of the money raised went to fund the next charity event. Basically, they were helping themselves to feel better. Meanwhile, I was busting my ass at a job I hated because I loved my family, and it was what was expected of me. When I left, I decided that from that point on, I was going to do everything just for me. During those 3 years, I had love affairs with several women, enjoyed it, and sincerely hoped they did too. But I was doing it for me. I wasn't going to settle down, and if they became too clingy or difficult, I just turned them off. I wanted to hook up, not find a friend or soulmate. Since then, I haven't looked back, and I don't intend to. I don't know what became of Amy, the house, or the 50 acres of land in the country, and I don't care. She has chosen her path in life, and if she is happy with her decision, then I can live with that. I secretly hope this fool is miserable and penniless, but I won't go out of my way to make that happen. I'd like to see my daughter again someday, but only if she promises not to let Amy know. So far, it's hard for her to make that promise. I continue to hope. From what I understand, Robbie, my friend is happy now. He's left a cheating wife and a miserable job, and he's not thinking about his wife. Why would he come back? To pay her to use him and let her make him miserable again? It just doesn't make sense to him. He is happy, healthy, and wealthy in all the areas that matter. His wife and his marriage to her made him miserable. When he finally woke up and gave up, he realized that the only two good things that came out of it were his daughter and ultimately his freedom. He finally realized that really, he was the only one in this marriage. His wife brought anger and nothing else. You know, he told me that after he left and tried a few other women, he realized she wasn't that good. In hindsight, he realized that she never, ever brought her best game to the marriage. She'd been playing him for 24 fucking years. That didn't sound like something worth staying for or coming back. Hey, Kev, how about another couple beers? He told me he felt his wife was a narcissist, and so he decided the cruelest thing he could do to her was to ignore her. He didn't want her to see his pain so she could feed off of it and feel like she mattered because of it. Indifference was the key. It would kill her, but how could he be around her and be indifferent? He decided that if he just left everything, he would thereby be telling her that he didn't only care about she, but their whole life together. He figured it might take years, but eventually she would stumble and fail, and in that, he would win. Robbie sighed and nodded. You're an interesting person, Bill, and it's a good story. Where's your buddy now? I shrugged. Fuck knows, Robbie. Somewhere having fun and brewing something. Definitely not working hard for an ungrateful, cheating wife. I think he's probably in Wisconsin. He told me he always wanted to see Wisconsin. Wherever he is, I'm sure he's happy and doesn't want anything to change. Tell me, why doesn't your friend Mrs. Watkins just file for divorce on grounds of child abandonment? Wouldn't that give her control of the marital assets she wants so badly? Seems to me that's a simple solution to her problem, and then you can stop looking for that Chaz and pissing off complete strangers in the process. There are no more assets to take control of, Bill. She tried to file a quitclaim deed, but because she tried to declare him dead first, by the time she got to the point of filing, she had lost her house, her country property, and her job. What are you talking about? What happened, and why are you still looking for this guy? Well, she ran out of money, couldn't afford the properties on her salary, and since she couldn't sell them, both properties were seized. The house was bought by a retired elderly couple, and the country estate was bought by a company called CWW LLC. It's sort of a metal art consulting company. Mrs. Watkins lost her job when it was discovered that she was having an affair with a married employee. Wow. She sure is a nervous fool, isn't she, Robbie? He nodded. Well, I'm certainly sorry to waste your time, Bill, but I almost enjoyed meeting you. He pulled $40 out of his wallet, tossed it on the table, stood up and extended his hand to me. No hard feelings? None, I said. But in the future, you should be careful who you upset. You're lucky I'm such a patient guy. He laughed, turning to walk away. He took about 6 steps before he stopped, and without turning around, he asked, Bill? Yes? For that matter, Amy still loves him. She's sorry and hopes to get him back. She's depressed, drinks too much, and can't cope. Women like her don't know what love is, Robbie. They love themselves and love what other people give them. They're consumers and incapable of thinking of others. They are greedy and vile and deserve whatever misery they bring upon themselves through their abuse of others. If she was sorry, she wouldn't keep sleeping with other men. She is only sorry that she is not being provided for, that people can find out the truth about her. She is sorry that she was caught and that the money has dried up. If she was truly sorry, she could have thought about her daughter's feelings and how she suffers without a relationship with her father. She could have thought about what she put her husband through and left him alone. She doesn't deserve him, but she won't admit it. In her warped, sick little world, she is the center of the universe, and reality, responsibility, love, respect, and honesty only work when they align with her goals. He and his daughter deserve better, don't you think? He slowly turned to face me. Chaz? Yes, Bob? Wisconsin can be cold in the winter, but I know Sarah likes it there. Maybe CWDW LLC should move its office to Racine, Wisconsin. Thanks, Bob. It's possible. Anything's possible. The end.